Okay, chapter 17. Look at that. 3 episodes in almost 3 weeks. That's as productive as I've ever been on my YouTube page. This episode is about a job called Dance Central, which was done a long time ago. And in this episode, we're going to focus on storyboards and designs and animation. Just looking down the road, I started to organize some folders. I think I've got quite a few episodes up my sleeve here. But in this episode, I'm going to focus on this job called Dance Central. Now, another way of looking at this is this work timeline that I put together. This is kind of interesting to look at this for a couple of reasons, but the one thing which sort of stands out here is that there's this kind of phenomenon where one job naturally leads to another. So you can see this guerrilla stuff. I mean, this wasn't the only thing we were working on, but this was like the main thing. This naturally led to Beatles Rock Band, which naturally led to Dance Central, and then to Tron Uprising. This was a little bit of a reset, which Wonder Woman led to Shinjuku, which definitely led to Parasiter and Cigarettes, which, I mean, I would argue this was the big reset in my career, doing this independent film. And that naturally led to Metallica, Murder One, and to a lesser extent Elvis, but definitely Parasiter directly led to Zima Blue, and then Belushi, and then Ice, and then Apex Legends and 400 Boys. Now, in this episode, we're going to go back and we're going to focus on Dance Central. You can see where this occurs on the timeline here. But before I get into that, I want to go back a little further to 2001. And what happened in 2001 was this. I'm not going to get too much into this right now, but I saw this, and this totally fucked me up. But in a good way. This sort of changed the way I kind of thought about animation. And look at this. This Clint Eastwood video. It's got over 1 billion views on it on YouTube. That's incredible. Now, I should point out that here on the timeline, you know, this Gorillaz chunk of time that I spent working on it, I had nothing to do with Clint Eastwood, nor anything really on the first album. I came to this party a little late. This was all Pete Candelan and Jamie. So anyways, Clint Eastwood happened. I was literally on the next plane to London. Well, I mean, not literally, but, you know, I was more or less on the next plane to London. You know, I went searching for the place where they were doing Gorillaz. And somewhere around the BT Tower in London, down this alley, is this red door. And I finally located the place where they were doing Gorillaz. And so I knocked on it. And what exactly happened after this, I'll get into in another episode. But to make a long story short, this was the beginning of a long and productive work relationship that went on for the better part of 10 years. So 10 years later, and we're still in the middle of our productivity. Now, this is Dan Sumich, and Dan has a list of directing credits, which I will include in the notes if you want to check his stuff out. But, you know, Dan's worked on a number of really cool projects. And so Dan and I co-directed this Dance Central job. So here's the Dance Central job. It's has this ensemble of characters, and throughout this little cinematic, we get introduced to each one of these characters. And then we have all the characters here at the end. Okay, so that's my little cut down of this Dance Central job. I located our original pitch deck that Dan and I put together here. This is the artwork that we put together to get this job. So as you can see, there's a dude doing graffiti somewhere, you know, somewhere in this urban environment. He's in the middle of spray painting something, and he jumps off of this platform and lands on the subway here. I mean, we're just kind of experimenting around with this pitch. You know, we wanted it to look fairly graphic. We wanted to have, you know, these spectrums in there and all this stuff. We kind of got away from it, these ideas, once we got into production. This is interesting in that this was the first drawing, as you can see here, I did of this Mara character, which ended up being featured in Tron Uprising. So this is the first time, you know, this character sort of, you know, popped up. But she didn't really figure into this particular job in any kind of way. Okay, and then here's some other, you know, figure drawings of, you know, people break dancing and stuff like this. So, okay, now let's get into the concept images. Once we got the job awarded, you know, then we started to really get into some of these conceptual images on this job. As I often do, I kind of dip into my own archive of work, you know, in my own massive SWERVE books. Here's some other background reference and conceptual stuff I did for this Dance Central job. This is another piece of artwork that seems to show up over and over again in my work, in this car interior. Now let's get into these thumbnails. I don't know why, but I ended up doing all the thumbnails for this Dance Central job on one roll of paper. I don't know why, but so let's go in closer on this. I cut this into 3 columns right here. You can see this is the beginning part where this guy's doing the graffiti, him jumping and landing on the top of the train, the skateboard sequence, and then the introduction of the other characters, and then the end of the cinematic here on this side. Now let's go in one step closer and take a look at these thumbnails. This isn't necessarily in the right order, but, you know, we've got this establishing shot, you know, this futuristic city, and this guy's spray painting. He's tagging something somewhere up here, and he jumps off and lands on the roof of a train. That noise alerts this guy. He's doing these, you know, he's exercising in this subway car. Then he opens the train doors, and you get the 2 shot of the guy on the roof and the guy on the train, and one of these flyers flies off and he grabs it. Meanwhile, elsewhere we cut to this sort of low angle of the guy skateboarding, you know, and him kicking and pushing, and he comes around the corner and he's also putting these flyers up, and then he's spray painting as he's going along this background here, and he passes this girl right here. Now we focus on her. She's doing this groovy little dance, and then this Cadillac comes into screen going the opposite direction, featuring this girl who's dancing outside of the sunroof. Meanwhile, in the interior of the car, you can see she's continuing to dance, and this gal's on the phone. She's talking to her friend on the phone, and she decides to give her a gentle little push in the bum, you know, which kind of pushes her forward. Meanwhile, we cut to the other girl is on the other end of the phone here, and, you know, she punches a punching bag. I don't know why she's angry, but she punches a punching bag right here. Look at the mileage I got out of this image right here. It's I'm a little embarrassed about that, but anyways, that's the way this job went. So this guy proceeds to put on his motorbike helmet, and then he takes this jump on his motorbike and lands. And then we cut inside the car, and there's 2 other characters here, and the camera rotates around to the back of the car, and there's, you know, a party in the back of the car. And then we see all the characters. I don't remember their names, but this is kind of like all the characters we're focusing on for the game. Those are the thumbnails. Now, let's get into the animation part of it here. Do you guys remember paper flipping? I don't know why, but one day I decided to put a GoPro on my hat and time-lapse myself animating. So this was kind of like what animating was back up until around that 2010 period. So, you know, I'd have my little setup, and I'd be, you know, set up on the edge of my desk with my computer in front of me, so I could be watching shit on YouTube, listening to music while I was drawing with my little .3 pencil. This was the equipment that we had: paper, eraser, pencils. And that was it. Let's get into the layouts. So these are my layouts. While I was doing these layouts, I kind of wanted to do like a concept frame, just to sort of show the lighting and the colors and the atmospheric effects and all this kind of stuff. Here's this dude, and he's spray painting up on this rooftop. Then he launches himself off the edge of this roof here. And again, here's this conceptual image, you know, just to sort of show what the background could look like. And then he's falling. And then here, this scene of this guy prying this door open. And then we get a look at this character. Now here's the shoe of the skateboard image as this guy kicks and pushes. And then pushes again. And then goes around a corner. He puts up a flyer. And then we see this gal right here. And she does a little kind of groovy thing. And here's the color frame for her. And then the car passes in front, this Cadillac. And these are the people driving the Cadillac. And this is the layout of the girl who's hanging out of the sunroof dancing. And this is inside the car. And this girl's doing a little booty dance right here. Here's the color frame for this particular image. You can see this is in the very early days where I discovered noise, and I was just starting to incorporate gradients into my animation layouts. You know, trying to get that comic booky kind of look. And so here I just sort of assembled the 2D drawing with the color image next to it, just as a little comparison. I think it's kind of fun to sort of see this. What I really get a lot of satisfaction of is being able to see the line work on top of the finished color image, all these little incidental lines and stuff. Here's this character, you know, again with the pencil drawing, and then the color version next to it. And this character, here's this guy again. Here's, you can just sort of see them next to each other. And this gal in the car here. So, and then these are the kind of hero images at the end where you see each one of the characters. Again, I can't remember the names of these characters. I found this image here. I think this was something that we used not for the intro but the outro. But here you can see like just the amount of the working into the paper that's done here. You know, you can see all the the bits of erasing and all the ghost lines and everything else. And I mean, I love all that incidental stuff, the working of the drawing that you can sort of see traces of in the paper. I mean, all this will eventually get cleaned up when you go to sort of work into these drawings. You know, there is a certain amount of this incidental line work that I like to maintain throughout the whole pipeline. But, I mean, we'll get into that. This is something that I'll continue pointing out as we go through these videos that I put together. So this is right around the time, as you recall, I started off flipping paper on this job. And by the time we were finished this job, we were all working on the Cintiq. This particular Cintiq, I still have. It's right next to me here. This thing has been a real workhorse. I've had it over 15 years. Another significant thing that happened on this job, this was the first job where we started working with Patricio Bateo. This is Patricio's Instagram page. You can kind of see the variety of styles that he has. That's one thing that you'll see when you check out his Instagram. The quality of the simplicity going on here, the graininess, the graphic simplicity of it. It's everything that I like. Look at just how everything's slightly skewed here with this little cat. This table, which is strangely flat. Just the liberties he takes as he's putting this stuff together. But we've worked on a number of projects together. Zima Blue, Patricio worked on this job. Then we worked on Ice together. Then Apex Legends. And more recently, 400 Boys and The Job, which we literally just finished a couple of weeks ago, but I can't talk about that because, yeah. So this is Patricio's Instagram page, and, you Go check it out if you get a chance. This is the halfway point of the video. So let's kind of get into some other things here. My last episode was called Chapter 16. It didn't quite do as well as I had hoped in terms of views. And I suspect it's because I was kind of being a bit of a cheeky monkey on that one. And some of you had kind of warned me, but I got flagged because I had some nudity and sexual content at 13:35 of that last video. I mean, I don't fucking care because I don't make this stuff for kids anyways, and so I think in order to watch this video, you have to be logged on, which is really going to reduce the audience by quite a bit. Now, it is what it is, and I just sort of did this video because I thought it was kind of funny, but I don't know. If I continue on like this, I suspect that my future here on YouTube might be fairly limited, but, whatever. And so one thing which is kind of a pain in the ass is you'll see on this Kyle Dunnigan page, he's got all his merch lined up at the bottom of his video, and I desperately want to have my merch available under the video. I've got a few things going on with my YouTube page, and I think it makes it difficult for me to be able to monetize my page. So I don't know. I mean, if any of you are proficient in YouTube and you have some suggestions about how I can resolve this stuff, I think that'd be pretty cool. Now let's look at the audience retention. On that last video, the amount of viewers left watching at the halfway point was 26.4%. Which is even lower than my video before. So that's funny. In spite of me busting everybody's balls, this one performed even worse. And so this is for the 26.4% of the people that are left viewing. So this is my cheeky image for the week. So hopefully this will still fall within the community guidelines. I think it should be. We'll see how it goes. Let's get to the draw. So if you recall from my last episode, I did this drawing of Sydney Sweeney. And then I brought this into Photoshop, and I kind of did my Photoshop methodology, and that's how I arrived at this more finished image right here. For some reason, I decided to screen record myself working on this image in Photoshop. As you can see, the first thing I do is clean up the paper drawing. I spent a good amount of time cleaning up some of these incidental lines and the messy stuff. That's kind of what this first part is. I like to leave some of those incidental lines in there. Then I go in and I select areas to add shading. There's basically two kinds of shadows that I add in here. One is the gradient shadows, and the other one are the hard shadows. So I kind of make a distinction between those two as I'm working on this stuff. The gradient shadows make things look nice and rounded, and the hard shadows are usually for cast shadows. What I'm looking for is a combination of, hard and soft shadows, which kind of gives it the kind of look that I like. Now, at a certain point, after I put the color grade and the noise level in there, and I'm working underneath that. Then I add this kind of gray layer on the character. In a perfect world, I've got my soft shadows on one layer, my hard shadows on another layer, and then I start to work in my highlights on top of that. Now, the highlights I like to do on an overlay layer. I think you get the best results when you're working on overlay. The shadows are on multiply, the highlights are on overlay. This could be the most time-consuming part, is going through and fussing around with all the details afterwards. It's almost like the last 10% of the drawing makes it look twice as good, So this is really just a question of where you want to stop the drawing. I mean, I like having a little bit of traces of the original pencil drawing in there, but there's a certain point where you have to decide, where you want to stop the drawing. Now, this is ridiculous, but, in the spirit of just being completely honest about this stuff, I had my original pencil drawing. This was my completed Photoshop image, and I thought, oh my God, this doesn't even look like this anymore. So I went through and I worked on top of the original pencil drawing so it resembled this drawing even further, and I kind of ended up with this. I know it's kind of ass backwards. It's amazing how much effort I put into these drawings to make it look like that they're done effortlessly. And that's the look that I want, but it is anything but effortless, to get this sort of quality that I like. It's a little combination of areas of being highly rendered with some areas of just kind of unfinished or scribbliness. So, I mean, again, this is just a question of personal taste. And so this is it. This is the drawing that I'm going to be raffling off. Okay, so let's get to some comments here. First off, I always watch your videos from beginning to end. Good man. Secondly, yesterday I checked out the Gorilla's House of Kong exhibit, and there was a room that featured an entire wall of your storyboards for Feel Good Inc. It was dope. Third, for the raffle, would it be a raffle for every $20 spent, or a raffle entry for every order of $20 and over? Well, I guess, for multiple purchases, I would put your name in the raffle multiple times, and that's probably the way I'm going to do this. You're mailing the pencil drawing. I know there's another comment where you say you'll send the PSD file. Want to clarify whether the pencil drawing is included. Right now, for the draw, I'll send this original drawing, which I'll pay for shipping, and I will include the original Photoshop file, which I just showed you in that time-lapse video. So you can dive deep into what I like to call my adventure layers. And on that particular one, the layering on that got so convoluted that I think that you'll have a good laugh and just sort of just see how fucked up that is. Now it's time to announce the winner of this week's draw is, and the winner is George Macedo. Now I'll reach out by email to the winner to get your contact information and your mailing information. So congratulations to you, and we'll do other draws in the future, but okay, let's move on. This is from Anonymous. Thanks for the PP image. I was at a family restaurant drinking coffee and spit some all over my phone, as you concluded that you can do whatever the fuck you want. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that, but you're in luck, because I have phone cases available to protect your phone from such things, which kind of naturally sort of segues us into the merch, or what I like to call the butter money part of the video. So here's a look at our merch page, that Tom and I have been kind of working on. We're kind of in the middle of retooling the merch page. I think every episode, as I focus on different pieces of artwork, I'll update the merch page in increments. So this last week, as you can sort of see from my desktop here, I was kind of focusing on all the poster images that are related to the Pear Cider and Cigarettes film. Continuing from where we left off last week. Last week I kind of focused on this red party image, which resulted in a number of sales. So there's a direct connection between the image that I'm focusing on and the resulting sales that happen. So here's a quick little upshot of the Pear Cider and Cigarettes posters. This one, which is called Beer and Smokes, the Blue Party, the Damn Drunk. This one, which I'm calling Techno Dive. This is what I call the Techno Montage. This window seat image, the White Swan. Now this is the image that I'm going to focus on this week. This is called Techno Run. And I tried a couple of different versions of this, but this is the one that I came back to. All these images, I'm kind of including the title graphics in them to sort of to posterize them and to sort of brand them as part of the Pear Cider series. And in this particular image, we kind of had all this composition that felt like it was kind of being unused. So I think this kind of resolved some of the problems I was having with this particular image. It's very much directly lifted from a scene in the film of Techno Running. Just to wrap up this episode, let's go to this comment from Anonymous. I would buy some merch only if you assure me that you'll use the money for weed. Okay, I will assure you that I will use the money for weed. And remember, don't fucking smash nothing or subscribe. Don't follow, and don't tell your friends. There's nothing here that's going to interest you or your fucking buddies.